it's Lisa from My Dreaming Soap. Welcome to my channel. Now for today's soap, it's going to be a fairly simple soap. This is one of my soaps that I make when I go to shows, to trade shows, craft shows, that sort of thing, and I have to take a lot of soap to those. And also as well, I find that people, although they do like the soaps with the designs in them, the pictures in them, quite often I do find people also like a more simple bar of soap. So I have sort of like a trademark almost, what do you call it when you have a trademark? You know, something I normally do on some fragrances and a standard style bar of soap that I make for these shows. It's still a pretty bar of soap, so it still looks a luxury bar of soap, and it still looks better than just a normal boring bar of soap, but it hasn't got a picture in it. So what I'm going to do first of all is it's going to be kind of an ombre soap, but it's going to be a layered ombre. So I need to prepare my oils first. So I've got all of my oils here. I've got a large amount that I'm going to colour white, and then a smaller amount that I'm going to colour shimmer blue from Mica Mama. And what I do is I prepare all the oils first, and then it's easier for me to then go through and do my ombre without mixing up all the colours every time. So I'm just going to put the blue in. Okay, so that will be my blue colour, and I'm also going to be putting in some titanium dioxide. So this is all going to be titanium dioxide. And I'm also going to add some titanium dioxide in here, because all of my soaps that I take to my shows, they're all much more pastel. So this will be toned down a little bit with the white straight away. Okay, so let's get these mixed up. Now this is just the oils at the moment. Okay, I'm going to give that a blend in a second. Okay, I'm just going to give these oils a blend just to get these colours properly dispersed. So I'm happy that that's all blended up well together. Now what this does mean is when I weigh off my oils for each of my layers, because I'm going to make up each of these layers individually so that everything has time to set up. So I need to make each layer up one at a time. But what I need to be careful of is as I pour from this pot, I need to make sure I factor in all the additions that are in there. So how I do that, if I just show you, I was doing myself a little spreadsheet here. So what I will have done is I'd originally worked out my colour, my plan for my colours. So I worked out how I want to use the oils. I'm not going to go all over that, how I've created my ombre. All I just want to say is that overall, I know that in total, I wanted to have 568 grams of blue oil and 1,643 grams of white oil. And then to make them blue and white, I worked out the colourants that I had to put in them. And can you see therefore that the values will obviously go up. So as I make each layer, it's these total values I'm going to divide out as I pour them out. If I just went in, as you can see here, this says a layer is 430 grams. If I poured off 430, I wouldn't be pouring off enough oil, because some of that would be the titanium dioxide, some of it would be the mica. So I do need to pour off, as you can see here, like 438 grams, and that will include the colourants and everything. So it is important if you're, mixing everything. This is fine. If you're going to put this all in one go, that's great. It's good to go. If you're splitting it out, you must account for the fact that you've changed those quantities in there. So you need to factor those into your calculations. Now for my show soaps, I always do an impression mat so they get a really cute top on them. And for this one, I'm doing a bubbles impression mat. Now I always get asked when I do my impression mat soaps where I get them from, the impression mats and that sort of thing. I make them myself, and I don't sell them in the shop, and I don't think I'm going to sell them in the shop. The main reason is I don't feel I make them so they look nice enough to sell. And I know some people will go, oh yeah, we don't care about that, but for something to come out of the I Dreaming Soap shop, it has to be something that I would be proud of. And whilst this is fine, I've just pulled this out, it's a bit sort of lumpy, bumpy, and slightly different heights. Also as well, I make my impression mats very thick, and that would then make them expensive, whereas you could go and buy one of those little cake decorating impression mats for probably just a couple of pounds. The amount of silicone I've got in my impression mats here would probably make them about 20-25 pounds. So I know people will always ask in the comments, where do I get it from, will I sell them in the shop? Unfortunately no, I'm not going to, just because I don't think I can produce them at a quality that I would be happy to sell them, and also a price that I think people would be willing to pay for them. So that's just the thing, a little bit on the impression mats, because I know people will ask in the comments. So that's in there now. I'm just going to put that to a side now while I make up that first layer of soap. I'm going to make up a very small first layer just to fill in the bubbles in that impression mat. So I'm just going to pour out my quantities very carefully. I'm doing it straight into this little bottle because I'm going to use the bottle to get in all the bubbles on the impression mat. And each time I'm going to use these coloured oils, I need to make sure that I stir them really well, because mica is heavy and it will sink to the bottom. Okay, so there's my colours. I've got my tiny bit of lye solution and sodium lactate in there. And I am just going to blend it up straight in this bottle with this little mini blender. Okay, I think that's fine. It looks emulsified. Right, let's get my fragrance in. The fragrance I'm using today is Sauvage from Craftivator in the UK. So I'm just going to add this to the bubbles. I mean, you could just pour it in with a jug, it's not really a problem. I just like the accuracy of the bottle. I won't be using all of this. This does a little bit too much. And what I do is then I just save this for another layer. Okay, so this just means I can get right into these bubbles. Just make sure that's pushed down nicely. Okay, so I'm just going to go in quite roughly, and then I can use this bottle a little bit later on to just fill in any bubbles that I need to. Okay, that's what I'm doing for now, and then I want to use a little scraper, well, just a spatula will be fine, to just scrape this into the places that I want. Okay, now to get the best effect with any impression mat, you do want to try and get that surface scraped as clean as you can, so that you don't have a layer of that bubble colour at the base of all the bubbles. You want the bubbles to look individual. Okay, so that's why, as you can see, I didn't overload that first layer. So I'm happy with that. I'm now just going to put this aside and let those bubbles set up before I start pouring the rest of the soap. I think my impression mat layer is now set up, so let's make our first layer. So I'm going to make my layers with them being pure white to start with, and then gradually getting a little bit darker till we get back down to this sort of light bluey colour. Okay, so this is just these white oils. And then our fragrance, again that Sauvage fragrance. Okay, so it's got a mixed in. It's a lovely masculine fragrance. It's really popular, actually. It does smell really good. Okay, and then I'm just going to add that to my impression matte bubbles. Okay, and I will with this first layer just give it a bang down, just in case there are any little gaps in that impression matte, you know, with the blue, then these will just go in and fill it up. Okay, so I'm now just going to put this aside. I am going to scrape this, so we need this to set up a little bit. Whilst that layer is setting up, I'm going to just prepare the next layer. When I'm pouring something for a layer, is I try and pour it as early as possible. So as soon as I've emptied the jug, I'm going to refill it back up for the next layer. I'm not going to put the lye in it yet. I want to get the oils moved as quick as possible, because then they can settle and any bubbles can work their way out. As soon as you pour something oil-wise, it gets bubbles in it. So if we can pour early, then those bubbles have a better chance of getting their way out. So I've weighed out the amount of white that I need. I'm now just going to add in the amount of blue, and notice I'm giving it a really, really good stir, because remember that mica will have potentially settled a bit. So I'm just going to pop what I need of that in. And then what I'm also going to do, remember what I did previously? I had some of the soap left from out of that little bottle, didn't I? So I'm going to add that into this layer. And I'll do that for each layer where I scrape some soap off. I'm not going to waste that soap. I'm just going to incorporate it into the next layer. And again, by doing this nice and early, what I can do is get that mixed in. If that was a bit thicker, I would probably blend that in, but that's quite runny, and that will mean that that's not going to give me any lumps and bumps. If that soap was really, really thick, it would be a little bit more difficult to blend in, but it was still quite nice and fluid, so not a problem there. And that's going to give me that pretty blue layer. I'm just going to leave that to wait until my layer that I've got in there now is ready for me to scrape. I think we're probably set up enough now, so I've got my little scraper that I'm going to be using, and I'm just going to drop this in. Okay, now this scraper is slightly higher on this side over here, so I'm just going to drop this soap back in. Okay, I can use that to scrape along. Okay, I think that's going to be fine. And then what I do with this is this excess that comes off just gets popped into that next layer and just blended back in. Okay, so I'm never actually removing any soap and leaving it out of the final soap. Okay, then I am going to do, which for me is a strange decision, I think, considering how much I hate them. I am going to do mica lines, and I end up, because I make so many of these soaps, I end up doing quite a lot of mica lines. But for my mica lines, I do them really, really light, so they're just like a tiny weeny little shimmer, as it were. So in here I've got some antique silver mica. I just pop it into a little jar with a clean bit of tight on there with an elastic band on. And I am just going to literally use that to create quite a light mica line. And I find if a mica line is done really lightly, it just emphasises the changes a little bit, but it doesn't give you the other problems that you can get with mica lines, in that I'm not putting an excessive amount of mica in there. I don't want it coming off on people's skin as they're washing. And also I don't want any of the soap separating or anything. So as you can see, for very, very, very light, you can still see a lot of my soap through that mica line, and that's my intention, that it's just a tiny little glimmer. Now, one of the things I find, which you might find useful if you do mica lines, quite often the side of your mould gets dirty. And the easiest way I find to clean it off successfully is take something, palette knife, a spatula or something, and as you're scraping the side of the mould, if you can get a little bit of your soap, so for example here I've got a little bit of soap there that was on the side of my mould, and if you sort of smear that along, that goes and that picks up that loose mica really well, much better than if you just try and get the mica off on its own. And for me, that is the best way that it comes off and leaves your sides really nice and clean. So that's ready. I'm now just going to leave that because it was a little bit soft to be scraping. It's fine, it's holding its shape, but I'm just going to pop that to the side just for a couple of minutes before I pour that next layer. Right, I've given that a couple of minutes to set up. So I've just mixed up that other soap. So that's got the scrapings of that previous layer and the little drips out of the pot we had, and obviously the new colours we mixed up. So that's everything all in here, and our fragrance. So we can now just get this added. So I'm just going to carry on doing this. I may chat through the rest of the layers, I may just put it through to music because it's basically going to be repeating the same thing. But I'm going to pop this now, let it set up, and then we'll repeat again. Do the scraping, do the mica line, and then build up till we finish with those layers.
Give me love, give me all your love, oh, 'cause I want you. No one else makes me feel this way, don't know what you do. Hold my hand, could you hold my hand, look me in the eyes. You and me, yeah, that's all I need, and I'll be alright. I'll be right here, I swear that I'll stay here with you. Hold me closer, I wanna stay here with you. All that we have is each other now.
Okay, so there's that done, just right up to the top. So I'm just going to leave this because this is quite fluid, so I'm going to leave it to firm up a little bit before I try and move it. Once it's firmer, I'm going to put the lid on and then put it in to C-pop overnight, and then we'll cut it tomorrow. Let's get this top taken off for our impression mat. I always love doing this. You ready? Whoa. Ha! Yay, look at those bubbles. Okay, so let's get this cut. Now, because this has got a mica line through it, I am going to cut it on its side because the cutting wires can drag the mica a little bit, and so I'd rather it drag it along the line of the mica line rather than up through the soap. I mean, you can always wipe the surfaces off. Okay, so let's see what we've got inside. Ah, look, that's come out really pretty. Really like that. So there's my little bubbly ombre with the little mica lines. And as I said, when I do these mica lines, it's really just to emphasize the layers a little bit. And as you can see, they're not probably what most people would do as a mica line. They're not really heavy, and that's deliberate. I don't want them to be heavy. I don't want to put that much mica in my soap. And certainly with a very light mica line like this, it'll have no effect on the foam. It won't change it. It won't, you know, you won't get mica all over your hands. And can you see there, even with that, I know with the way I cut it, there was not enough mica coming out to smear over. And if I do this, there's no mica coming out to smear over the rest of the soap. So therefore, to me, I like a very gentle mica line that really just does a tiny little bit of highlighting of the soap. So yeah, I'm really pleased with those. Each one will, unless we're surprised, look the same. So those are really cute. And the little bubbles on the top. Okay, so I said these are the sort of soaps. I do sell my picture soaps at the craft shows and things that I do, and I sell a lot of those, but these are the ones I sort of almost bulk make and sell. I mean, they still take quite a while to make, you know, they're not an easy soap where you just pour into a mould and it takes you like 20 minutes. They do take a lot of time still to make, but I think they are really cute. And I also sell them in bundles, so I sell one of each of the fragrances that I do, which all look slightly different. Okay, so those are my little Sauvage, what I call my craft show soaps, and I'm really pleased with those. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and you like the soap. If you do, it would be great if you gave me a thumbs up, because that really does help my channel to grow. If you'd like to see what I'm making in the future, why not subscribe to my channel? Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good day. Happy soaping.